Years ago, he slept on this floor. Today, he owns the building. On a cold winter night in Chicago, the wind howled through the empty streets. Snow covered the sidewalks, and most people hurried inside to escape the freezing air. But outside a small homeless shelter on Maple Street, a young man named Daniel Carter sat quietly on the steps. He wore a thin jacket, his hands trembling from the cold. In his pocket, he had only $2 and a bus ticket that had expired days ago. Daniel had lost everything. Just a year earlier, he had been working at a small construction company. He had a modest apartment, a used pickup truck, and dreams of starting his own business someday. But when the company suddenly shut down, Daniel lost his job overnight. Bills piled up quickly. His savings disappeared. And soon, he couldn't afford rent anymore. The landlord gave him 2 weeks to leave. That night, Daniel packed his belongings into a single backpack and walked out of the apartment he once called home. He thought the struggle would last only a few weeks, but weeks turned into months. Eventually, Daniel found himself standing in front of the homeless shelter on Maple Street, tired, hungry, and unsure about the future. Inside the shelter, an elderly volunteer named Mrs. Thompson greeted him with a warm smile. She handed him a bowl of hot soup and a blanket. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she said gently. Those words stayed in Daniel's heart. For the next 6 months, the shelter became his only safe place. Every night, he slept on a narrow bed in a crowded room filled with strangers. Some people had given up hope. Others struggled with addiction or illness, but Daniel refused to quit. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise, put on his worn-out shoes, and walked across the city searching for work. He filled out job applications at restaurants, warehouses, and construction sites. Most employers turned him away. "Sorry, we're not hiring," they said again and again. Still, Daniel kept trying. One rainy afternoon, he noticed a small sign on the window of a hardware store. "Help wanted." Part-time, without hesitation, Daniel walked inside.
Oh,
The owner, an older man named Mr. Harris, looked at Daniel's tired face and worn clothes. "Do you have any experience?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Daniel replied. "I'll work as hard as I can. I just need one chance." Mr. Harris studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right," he said. "Oh, you start tomorrow." That single opportunity changed everything. Daniel worked longer hours than anyone else. He arrived early, stayed late, and volunteered for the hardest tasks. He saved every dollar he earned. After a few months, he moved out of the shelter and rented a small room. After a year, he was promoted to store manager. And after 5 years, Daniel took a risk that scared him. He opened his own construction company with the money he had saved. The first year was difficult. The second year was better. By the third year, his business began to grow faster than he ever imagined. Daniel hired more workers, completed bigger projects, and built a reputation for honesty and quality work. Years passed. His small company turned into one of the most successful construction firms in the city. Eventually, Daniel became a millionaire, then a multimillionaire, and finally a billionaire. But despite his success, Daniel never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the cold nights. He never forgot the hunger. And he never forgot the kindness of the shelter that gave him hope when he had nothing. One snowy evening, nearly 20 years after his hardest days, a long black car slowly stopped in front of the same homeless shelter on Maple Street. The building looked older now, its paint faded and roof worn down. The door opened, and a tall man in an expensive coat stepped out. It was Daniel. Inside, the shelter was crowded with people seeking warmth from the winter storm. Volunteers rushed back and forth, serving food and handing out blankets. A new manager approached Daniel politely. "Help you?" she asked. Daniel smiled softly. "Yes," he said. "I used to sleep here many years ago." The room suddenly grew quiet. Daniel looked around at the familiar walls, remembering the nights he spent dreaming of a better future. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed the manager a thick envelope. Inside was a check. The amount made her hands shake. $10 million. For repairs, food, and new beds," Daniel said calmly. "No one should feel forgotten here." Tears filled the manager's eyes. The volunteers and residents stared in disbelief. But Daniel wasn't finished. He turned to the crowd and spoke with emotion in his voice. "This place saved my life," he said. "When I had nothing, you gave me hope. Now it's my turn to give back." At that moment, many people in the room began to cry. Not because of the money, but because of the message: hope, kindness, second chances. Before leaving, Daniel quietly walked to the corner of the room where he once slept. He placed his hand on the wall and whispered a simple thank you. Then he stepped outside into the falling snow. The car drove away slowly, disappearing into the night. But the impact of his kindness remained forever. Because sometimes the greatest success is not becoming rich, it's remembering where you started and helping others rise too.